I mean, what do you guys want me to say? What do you want me to say? What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to the SI Sooners podcast. Is that what you want me to say? Listen, we're all bummed right now. Nobody wants to listen to a podcast. I get it. You know what? Nobody else wants to record a podcast either. When there's no freaking game. Come on. God. You guys have heard the news by now. Oklahoma, West Virginia, Saturday night. Primetime, Morgantown, West Virginia. Yeah, it's postponed. COVID. Nobody's happy about this. Parker, I really thought we were going to make it 2 more weeks. I thought we were going to get through this regular season without any stoppages. How stupid was I? Because, listen, nobody, and I mean nobody, has been better at managing and honestly dodging the Rona than Oklahoma has this year. And here, this week, bang, they get it. Now there's no game.
Yeah, John, I feel for you because the 1 week of the season where Oklahoma finally postpones their game is the 1 week where you have to then go and cancel flight plans to Morgantown and all that good stuff. But tell you what, I'm relaxing here, John. I'm doing just fine here in the windswept plains of Nebraska, in the words of our technically still sitting president. So I'm enjoying Thanksgiving. How about you?
Yeah, we've got a new stove, and we shop for all the groceries. I can't wait to smell the house tomorrow as my wife cooks literally all day. I'm John Hoover. I'm in Tulsa. That's Parker Thune. He's in Norman. I know you don't care, but listen, we appreciate you guys listening to the SI Sooners podcast. We appreciate y'all watching on my YouTube channel. We are a Fan Nation affiliate, part of the Sports Illustrated Network. That's right. Changed it up a little bit. You need to go to sisooners.com. allsooners.com to check it out for real. I would invite you to like our fresh website, clean, as the kids like to say today. I think is it clean now or is it something else? Is it wet? What's the word, Parker?
Let's see, clean. I mean, icy.
Icy.
Probably
That's a
be
good
one that they would use. I'm trying to think what else. Dripping.
Drip.
I don't know. I'm not up to date with
our
the kids,
website.
John.
Yep.
My freshman year of college was in 2017, so I'm kind of over the hill by now.
Allsooners.com, same content, same lovable characters as such as myself and Parker and Caroline. And, of course, Kemper wrote a cool basketball story this morning. I don't know what to say. Basketball got canceled too. Anyway, website. It's a brand new look. It's a whole new look, a new presentation. Check it out, allsooners.com. Also, subscribe to this podcast, and you guys will know every time we post a new one. You know how that works. That's every Sunday and every Wednesday. And while you're there, I encourage you, please, give us a rating, share us on social media. If you are watching us on YouTube, you know what to do there. Give us a like. Mash that like button, as they say, or comment down below or subscribe. Okay, here's kind of what happened. Remember last week when Brett McMurphy tweeted right before the Bedlam game that the Sooners and the Cowboys had been in talks as late as Thursday evening about postponing that game? Well, it's a damn good thing they didn't postpone it because the West Virginia game is now bumped to November 12th. That's the only open date left. So good thing they didn't bump last week's game. They got the Big 12 championship on the 19th, the college football and bowl selection show on the 20th. But the 12th is the week before the Big 12 title game, man. That's a tight fit, first of all, right? Secondly, we've talked all year about how OU has really been diligent about staying away from the virus, doing all the right things. Well, it got them this week. OU had to pause all team-related activities. So, yeah, this is OU's fault. West Virginia's probably not happy either, right? Who knows why, who knows how, but listen. Football, as I said earlier, was not the only sport affected here. Basketball, tonight's season opener, men's basketball we're talking about, Lon Kruger and the boys, season opener against UTSA, postponed. I think that's a friendly way of saying it's going to be canceled. Saturday's game at UCF, which was a terrible idea in the first place. Parker, you and I talked about this on the last podcast. Basketball is going to have a hell of a time trying to squeeze in 2 games a week. Not just now, but in February, in March. Who knows how long this thing could go. So, hey, I got to ask you, it looks like the OU campus apparently has turned into something of a hotspot. You made it to Omaha, okay. You're currently not feeling under the weather, are you? Like our man Nick Saban?
Well, I haven't been swabbed in the nose in several days, so Who knows whether I'm positive or not, but no, I'm certainly not carrying any symptoms, John. And by the way, just want to circle back. You said the game had been postponed to November 12th. Of course, everyone with half a brain listening knows that you meant December 12th, but I guarantee you that Gerald and his army of YouTube trolls paused the video right then and there to say, Hoover, you're an idiot. So, trolls, boom, I beat you at your own game. Let's proceed.
So, Sooners at West Virginia Tech. That'll be on June 3rd. Gerald. So have fun with that one. All right, Parker. So we don't have a game to talk about this week. I'm still stuck. Like my mind is still stuck in October for some reason. I don't know why. I haven't rolled my mental calendar into November yet. And here we're getting ready to start December, it feels like. But anyway, I think we can still talk about this, Parker, even if no one's going to listen. We've got a lot of good content stored up, I'll say, for the week of December 12th. That's coming up in a few weeks. So that's good. But I want to talk about the story you wrote last night. And you guys need to follow along, allsooners.com, about the college football playoff rankings. Again, nobody's listening. Nobody cares. Sooners are not in it. But I did a show last night in Pittsburgh, a little video, kind of a preview of the West Virginia game. And the rankings came out during the show. And the host asked me where Oklahoma would be during the show. And I said, 10, maybe possibly 9, but then it came out and it was 11. And he said, hey, nice job. And I said, I think I was a little too optimistic. Parker, was I too optimistic?
No, not at all, John. And the thing that confuses me more than anything, it's not where BYU is ranked. I think it's where Georgia is ranked, because to me, that's the one team in the top 10 that probably doesn't deserve to be at number 9. That team has been inconsistent, shaky. They've had some issues at the quarterback position. Seems like a revolving door, and hopefully, for their sake, JT Daniels is now the guy in Kirby Smart's offense and can lend some degree of stability. But I really didn't see any reason to slot Georgia at 9 last night. Of course, BYU dropped 8 spots to 14. Oregon dropped 8 spots to 15. You got the Sooners at 11, which I think Sooner Nation should be pleased with that. I said after their win on Saturday that it wouldn't shock me if they were top 10, but I thought 12 was the floor. So 11 in my mind is just about where Oklahoma deserves to be at this point in time. And, you know, they can hold out for some chaos over the next couple of weeks, but it really becomes imperative that they get that Baylor game in and they get the West Virginia game in, because they don't have any more cushion to mess around with, John. They have to play both of those games if they want to play for the Big 12 championship and have a chance to impress the committee and be in the conversation for a New Year's Six Bowl, which they're certainly already in the conversation, but if they want to lock that in, it has to come via a Big 12 championship, which can only happen if those two games on December 5th against Baylor and on December 12th at West Virginia get played.
Yeah, I'll go you one better. To make the Big 12 championship, like you said, to win the Big 12, of course they have to win the championship game, but to get to the Big 12 championship, they've got to play and win these next 2 games. If they don't, if this November 12th game gets bumped, what happens to if Texas and Oklahoma State lock in at technically half a game above Oklahoma in the standings, first place? Those will be the 2 teams. If they're tied, those will be the 2 teams that go to Arlington. And Oklahoma, which beat those 2 teams, would not, because they would have 1 fewer win. I mean, we're talking Big 12 math here, people. To which I would say Lincoln Riley should rent one of those banner planes that flies over Arlington, flies over AT&T Stadium, right? Pulling the Oklahoma Sooners Big 12 championship banner like Mac Brown did in Kansas City in 2008 when OU and Missouri played. Y'all remember that? That was fun. I think we agree there's no chance that OU's going to the playoff this year. Not with all these undefeated teams that are around the country and all these teams that are playing 4, 5, 6, 7 games around the country and all these games that are getting canceled. And frankly, all these games that Oklahoma lost. They lost twice. They don't deserve to go to the playoff. But you know what? It's kind of worked out. This is a rebuilding season, and it's also a lost season. So if you're OU, you try to win as many games as you can. Try to win the Big 12. Try to go to a cool bowl game somewhere. Maybe the Cotton, like we talked about last week. Maybe the Fiesta, like I got my fingers crossed for. Lincoln Riley said this week it wouldn't make sense to give up hope on the playoff. And I guess if you're Lincoln Riley, he's right. But, yeah, not this year. Up next on the SI Sooners podcast, college football silly season is here. You know what that means. Lincoln Riley's coaching staff might be in the crosshairs of somebody looking to make a hire. We'll tell you exactly who up next. Hey, are you a business owner looking to get your product out there to the masses? Let's say you run a hotel in Norman or a car dealership in Oklahoma City or a restaurant in Edmond, or maybe you're a small online business who creates and sells OU merchandise, and you just want Sooner Nation to come sample your wares. Well, then consider advertising in this space right here on the SI Sooners podcast. SI Sooners reaches thousands of readers, viewers, and listeners literally every day, and the SI Sooners podcast is the ideal place to find your next customer. To advertise, send an email to allsoonersi@gmail.com or DM us on Twitter at all_Sooners. Follow SI Sooners on Twitter, all_Sooners. Find Parker at Parker Thune, Thune. I'm at John E. Hoover. Our website, allsooners.com. New, clean, fresh, icy, all that good stuff. We're part of the Sports Illustrated Network. It's all free, no memberships, no subscriptions, no credit cards. If you guys prefer to watch the video of this podcast, well, you know where to find that. It's on YouTube, John Hoover Media. Simple as that. Like I said earlier, please rate, share, comment, all that good stuff. Helps us a lot when you can do those things. It does. Parker, we've seen a couple coaches fired. We've seen a couple of guys retire. We've seen one make a lateral move to Texas. I guess you would call it a lateral move. Making more money probably, but would not winning more games. But is there any surprise that the first guy on Lincoln Riley's coaching staff, who is apparently a strong candidate to get a head coaching job, is Shane Beamer?
No, I wouldn't say it's a surprise, John. I mean, he's got the lineage as Frank Beamer's son. He's demonstrated a very innate acumen for the game, which you would come to expect. But, I mean, he's a guy that has been talked about in head coaching circles for 3 or 4 years now. It always seems as though when this time of year comes around, he's one of the guys whose name gets brought up in coaching searches, and it hasn't really materialized yet. But I think with that opening at South Carolina and Beamer's history with South Carolina, that's a move that makes a lot of sense on his end. And obviously, if you're Lincoln Riley, you want to keep the guy around, and he said as much in his press conference yesterday when asked about Beamer potentially pursuing that South Carolina vacancy. But at the end of the day, as long as Lincoln Riley is there in Norman, he's going to make sure that his staff is loaded with guys who understand the vision, who bring their own vision and can contribute to winning football in the Oklahoma Sooners program. And Shane Beamer is one of those guys. Riley acknowledged it. He's not going to be around forever. He's going to get a head coaching job, whether that be sooner or later. And I think you definitely have to look at this as a possibility that Beamer takes the head coaching vacancy at South Carolina and you have to replace him. So I would imagine that given all the other turnover that's gone on in the program in 2020 and all the circumstances that have transpired and everything that the season continues to throw at everyone, it's probably not at the forefront of Lincoln Riley's concerns right now, but once the season wraps up, that's probably priority A1, is hedging your bets just in case Shane Beamer decides to look elsewhere and you have to turn around and replace him.
Yeah, that might happen as early as December. He's supposedly interviewing Friday. The team was going to fly out, remember, Friday morning, and then he was going to fly somewhere else and meet up with the team later. Presumably, it's possible that the West Virginia brass was going to meet him in Morgantown or somewhere else, some undisclosed location. So that's probably still going to happen, even though the team's not flying out there. He's going to probably still meet wherever they can find a meeting place. Now, I will say this, Parker. You said as long as Lincoln Riley's in town, everything's fine, copacetic. Well, Bob Stoops thought the same thing until he started losing some really talented assistants like every year, and he had to replace those guys like every year, and it got harder and harder. Just look at some of the names: Mike Leach, Mark Mangino, Chuck Long, Mike Stoops left. Remember what a great defensive coordinator he was the first time around. Then you start losing guys like, you just go down the list, and it's like he started realizing, hey, it's harder and harder to hire quality football coaches. He started hiring his old roommates and stuff like that. That didn't work out. Kevin Wilson left. That was another one. So I will say this. Under Beamer, OU special teams have been better. Their recruiting has been pretty good. He's recruited some pretty good H-backs, obviously, over the last few years. He coached at USC 2007 to 2010 under Steve Spurrier. So like Lincoln said yesterday, he's coached under some guys who have really established themselves. His dad, he played long snapper. I thought that was interesting. He played long snapper and wide receiver for his dad. He was born in Charleston, South Carolina, when his dad was an assistant coach at the Citadel. So they fired Will Muschamp, who was on the payroll for $4.5 million a year. So, yeah, I know OU's a great place to coach, and their assistant coaches make great money for assistant coaches. And being the special teams coordinator in Norman and the H-back coach is a great gig. But if they're going to pay him SEC head coaching money, he's going to be gone like yesterday. So, and he deserves that shot. So you'd have to just kind of applaud for him and thank him for his service. South Carolina's got a bunch of other guys they're considering, but the story I read today in The Athletic said that he was a favorite among the former players, the letterman of the Gamecocks. Here's what I dug up. He was the recruiting coordinator for the last 2 years he was there. You say, well, how good is South Carolina, right? How good a recruiter was he? How good of players did he get? First of all, as the recruiting coordinator there, he's got deep ties in recruiting in the South. Probably you got to figure throughout the Carolinas and South and Georgia and all that, right? Apparently he was pretty good at his job. They had the number 12 class in the nation in 2009. And then in 2010, 11, 12, they won 9 games, 11 games, 11 games, and 11 games. So he recruited some guys now. He recruited some players. So, yeah, you better believe he's a leading candidate. Would not surprise me at all if he takes that job. Parker, speaking of recruiting now, our man John Garcia at SI All-American slimmed down the Sports Illustrated 2021 recruiting, how do I say this, honors, kind of accolades today. First of all, no Caleb Williams, and Parker's going to explain why in just a second. But Billy Bowman, Ethan Downs, Cody Jackson, Latrell McCutcheon, and Mario Williams made a new list today. Parker, tell us about it.
Yeah, so John, as you mentioned, the list is a little bit different than I think anybody would have expected at the beginning of the year, because the plan was you start with 1,000, you trim down to 250, and eventually you name a team of 25 SI All-Americans in December at the annual awards banquet. But due to COVID-19 cancellations and a lot of states deciding to play high school football in the spring rather than in the fall, that's had to force the SI All-American staff to adapt, and they've done that. So what they've done is they've chosen to split their recruiting season, if that's what you want to call it. But they have a list of 250 finalists that just went out today from 28 states that are playing high school football in the fall. They will do the same thing in the spring with the 17 states that are playing high school football in the spring as opposed to in the fall. So you're essentially going to have 2 SI All-American teams, and the guys that play football in any of those 17 states, including Washington, D.C., which Caleb Williams hails from, those guys are going to be featured on the spring installment of the SI All-American team. So the 250 on the list today, you're only going to see those 5 Oklahoma commits: Ethan Downs, Cody Jackson, Mario Williams, Billy Bowman, and shoot, who did I just forget, John?
Latrell McCutcheon. Yeah.
Latrell McCutcheon. There you go. And so that's the reason you only see 5 Sooner commits. If you took a quick look over that list, you say, why are there only 5 Sooners? That's why, so don't freak out. There's nothing strange going on behind the scenes. You're not going to see any decommitments, at least to my knowledge, from this 2021 recruiting cycle for Oklahoma. But that's why among the 250, you only have representatives from 28 states. That's why Caleb Williams isn't at the top of the list, and that's why you will have 2 SI All-American teams, one in the fall, one in the spring in this wild recruiting cycle, because, of course, everything has had to change here in 2020 to adapt to the COVID-19 pandemic, and, of course, the world of collegiate football recruiting is no exception.
There's a couple of guys that might be on the fall list. Might be they're on the fall list. They might be OU commits that are on the fall list, Bryce Foster and Kamar Wheaton. Haven't committed yet, but that is a wideout. That is 3 wideouts of the 5 now that OU commits. That is 3 wideouts, a corner, and a defensive end. Parker, for the 5 Sooners on the list right now, the SI 250, who do you think will make the most immediate impact? And yes, I'm talking next year, 2021.
I think you got to look at Billy Bowman just because of his versatility. John, he's a guy that Lincoln Riley can put anywhere on the field, and there's a very good chance that, like we saw with Trajan Bridges last year, you see Billy Bowman on both offense and defense at some point. So I think that gives him the inside track to make the most immediate impact of any of those five. And I like them all. I think all of them have a chance to contribute as true freshmen. But Bowman's ceiling is by far the highest in my mind.
Interesting. Up next on the SI Sooners podcast, hey, we got a little good news for you. Just a little.
Hey there, loyal listeners. Parker Thune here with SI Sooners. Are you a business owner looking to get your product out there to the masses? Let's say you run a hotel in Norman, or a car dealership in Oklahoma City, or a restaurant in Edmond. Or maybe you're just a small online business who creates and sells OU merchandise, and you want Sooner Nation to come sample your wares. Consider advertising in this space right here on the SI Sooners podcast. SI Sooners reaches thousands of readers, viewers, and listeners literally every day, and the SI Sooners podcast is the ideal place to find your next customer. To advertise, send an email to allsoonersi@gmail.com or send us a direct message on Twitter at @all_Sooners.
Final segment of the SI Sooners podcast. Okay, I promised a little good news, but first, women's basketball. Yeah, you guessed it. OU opened the season today against Houston. At least they didn't get knocked out by COVID, but they did take a 12-point L, 97-85, and guess what? It doesn't get any easier. They play Gonzaga, number 21 in the country, this Saturday in South Dakota. Don't ask. Okay, you got your smidgen of good news coming up from what I think is a otherwise really, really crappy day. Oklahoma and Lincoln Riley remain undefeated in the month of November for 2020. Huh? How about that? Yeah. Wah, wah, wah. Yeah, that's right. The last time OU lost a game in November was 2014. That is the year before Bob Stoops hired Lincoln Riley as offensive coordinator. So since the guy has been in town, he has never lost a game in November. Listen, I'm just saying, we're all looking for a little bit of positive to carry us into Thanksgiving. Well, Parker, that one's mine. What do you think?
I mean, if we're just talking about carrying us into Thanksgiving, John, I would say the biggest positive in my mind has to be the cranberry relish. That's my great-grandmother's recipe that my mother is going to prepare tomorrow. That's always what I look forward to most about Thanksgiving. Now, is that a bit of a different answer than you were expecting? Probably, but right now that's what I'm excited most about.
Parker, my big question is not necessarily about the Thanksgiving dish, but which one was the better catch? CeeDee Lamb's one-hander in his sophomore year against UCLA, which was actually ruled out of bounds, or CeeDee Lamb's horizontal layout last week against Minnesota?
Well, John, I'll tell you what. My roommates and I were watching his catch on Sunday live as it happened, and we were just in disbelief. I mean, to see the way that he contorted his body and readjusted to make that catch was just astonishing. We all watched Andy Dalton throw that ball and figured, oh, that's an incompletion. He missed him. CeeDee Lamb is probably one of the only people on the planet that makes that catch. He is something special at wide receiver. And the presence of mind, not just to find the ball, locate it, figure out how he needs to adjust in order to reel it in, but then to lay out backwards and actually bring it in with a defender draped all over him, that's the kind of play that provides a testament to just how high CeeDee Lamb's NFL potential is. And I get that there's going to be a bit of a timeshare in that Dallas offense for the foreseeable future with Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup firmly planted there. But 3-4 years down the road, I think you're going to be looking at CeeDee Lamb as one of the top 5 wide receivers in the NFL. He's that good. And if he keeps making plays like this on a regular basis, he's going to continue to draw more and more snaps, more and more targets, and more of an opportunity to show what kind of player he can be at the professional level for the Dallas Cowboys.
Here are some people on the planet who could have made that catch. Jerry Rice would have known that Andy Dalton was going to throw a crap ball, and he would have adjusted his route, and he would have made a simple catch. Megatron would have plowed through his guy and thrown him out of bounds and then made the catch all by himself. Randy Moss would have just stood there and jumped up and caught it one-handed. Wouldn't have been any big deal. I say the one-hander was a better catch, a more impressive catch. The one-hander was impossible. It was like physically impossible. Like, seriously, you need to be bitten by a radioactive spider to make that catch. You see what I'm saying? You need superpowers. It's not human to jump up like that and make a catch one-handed. And I'm going to go in on the refs here in a second, and this doesn't diminish the Sunday catch at all. But at least I thought Sunday's catch was physically possible. Like a human being could do that. Like a trapeze artist could swing off a trapeze into a net and catch that football. So could CeeDee Lamb, right? Hard, but not impossible. The one he made 2 years ago, and Lincoln Riley, man, he should have used like a challenge flag. He should have called timeout. He should have taken his shirt off and laid down in midfield, whatever it took to get a replay of that catch. That might be the best play in OU history that never actually happened, Parker. So, I don't know. I want to give you guys a little look before we break, a look behind the curtain into the sports writer life. I've been prepping for this trip to West Virginia now for a while, obviously, like big time prepping. Like I've been to every game this year and all the other road games I was able to drive, right? I mean, Ames and Lubbock were miserable experiences. Don't get me wrong. But I drove them. This one, 14 hours in the car passed. So I booked a flight. Yeah, booked a flight in a pandemic. I know, right? What an idiot. My little discount fare routed me through Denver. I know. So that would have been 7 hours and 40 minutes in the air on an airplane, probably in an aisle seat, probably in a middle seat between two COVID carriers. You just know. I mean, so I went out and I bought like a mask, like a real mask, like a respirator. Seriously. I've been taking extra vitamin C and stuff, getting ready for this trip. I've been taking all these precautions, and then boom, no game, just like that. So Parker, the first thing I did after I wrote the breaking news story, we mentioned it earlier, is go back and change all my travel plans, man. Airfare, rental car, hotel, all canceled. Or you know what? Actually, I postponed my flight to November 11th because Southwest is awesome like that. But all the changes ended up saving me like $20. And I don't have to stay an extra day in Pittsburgh, and I don't have to fly through Denver. My new flight is through Baltimore. So what am I thankful for? I'm thankful for all that. And I get to spend, you know what? I won't be on the plane for literally 8 hours, and I get to spend the entire Thanksgiving weekend with my family, apparently watching college football in my living room. So, I mean, if you think about it, I made out pretty good. Parker, you mentioned the cranberry relish. What are your family's Thanksgiving Day staples? And what is a kind of a traditional dish that Parker says, nah, Ma, I ain't taking that on my plate?
I've never been a big stuffing guy, John, and the cranberry relish is the one thing in my family that everybody kind of looks forward to. Me more so than anybody else, just because I love fruit for whatever reason, and so ever since I was real young, that's always been my favorite part of Thanksgiving. My grandmother always makes a chocolate pie, because my grandfather loves it. I've never really understood why, because a chocolate pie is really just chocolate pudding in a pie crust. So I've never really been on the same page as my grandpa in that regard. I tell you what, though, if that mask that you mentioned you went out and bought is as big a deal as you were making it out to be, I want to see a picture of that posted on social media in a couple weeks when Oklahoma presumably heads to West Virginia, because I'm interested to see what Stormtrooper John looks like.
That's actually not a bad idea. I might have to put a mask on top of my mask, like it's Halloween again. Here's what we do at my house. We always go turkey over ham. We love ham, but for Thanksgiving, it's always turkey. Mashed potatoes, probably the second on my plate. Gravy on everything. I like sweet potatoes, but only if they're covered, and I mean covered, in brown sugar, marshmallows. Parker, I don't know what you got going against stuffing, man. Give me cornbread stuffing literally for every meal. Not just Thanksgiving, but literally every meal. And you know what else? About 4 years ago, I became a green bean casserole convert. And speaking of dessert, if you put any kind of dessert on my plate, I will call you my friend. But for Thanksgiving, and if you think about it, really Thanksgiving only, I'm going to say pumpkin pie. I don't eat pumpkin pie year round. I don't drink pumpkin spice latte. I don't have like pumpkin Rice Krispies or anything like that. But for Thanksgiving, man, give me some freaking pumpkin pie. My wife makes the same things every year because she knows me. Listen to the SI Sooners podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google, iHeart, wherever you get your podcasts, or on your Amazon-enabled device. Just say, Alexa, play the SI Sooners podcast. or go to allsooners.com. Click on the player and listen on your phone, your tablet, or your computer. And you can always watch the video version on my YouTube channel, John Hoover Media. For Parker Thune, I'm John Hoover. Happy Thanksgiving!